It's wintertime and it's cold and it's time to install a heater in the box truck. I'm going with it's called the Binar. It's a hydronic heater. So I'm not heating air, I'm actually heating coolant. And there's a couple of reasons I'm going this way. Number one, I'm also going to be using this to heat hot water. And I have a hot water tank that is dual purpose or dual source. I can heat it electrically, which I won't because I'm not going to be plugged in, or I can run coolant through it. This also means that I can heat it when the engine of the truck is running, and it also means in the opposite direction, I can preheat the engine of the truck with the diesel heater. So here's what you're going to find when you open the box. First off, it's very full. There is a lot of stuff that comes with this install kit, and it's all one kit. Everything that you need comes with it. And of course, the heater. So as you can see, it's not that big, but it does the job. This is the Binar 5S. It's a 5 kilowatt heater, 12 volts. And you can see here we've got place for the coolant to come in and the coolant to go out. And then the air intake and exhaust and the fuel in. Now before you get too far into the installation, what you want to do is a really quick rough layout to make sure that the harness is going to reach each of the locations where you install the components. What I mean by this is, here's my control and I wanted it to be here. Do I have enough harness to reach the heater and the pump that are right back here in the corner underneath the bed? So what I've done is just a quick mount of the diesel heater itself, and I've run the harness through the back underneath the bed, up to my access to underneath the countertop, through underneath the countertop over to where the electrical connections are made. Now you're probably thinking, that looks pretty sloppy, and it is. The point here is not to do the final finished installation, it's to make sure that the locations of each component are going to work.
My next step was to do a temporary install or a mock-up of the exhaust to make sure that the location of the heater is going to work with the planned routing of the exhaust. Make sure, as I marked earlier, that you connect the exhaust to the exhaust and not the intake, and it needs to be a downhill slope all the way out. And also they say that this distance here between the unit and the muffler needs to be a minimum of 200 millimeters, which is just under 8 inches.
And here we are with the heater assembled. Everything is tightened up, exhaust is on. Onto the mounting plate / heat shield with another heat shield for the muffler, coming all the way down to the part that sticks through the bottom of the truck.
Alright, mounted back in place. Next step, I'm going to be connecting the fuel line. So first I'm going to remove the plastic cap that protects the end of the line. And I'm going to slide this clip on first, and then slide on the hose. And I've already tightened the second clamp on here, just to make it a little easier working in a tight space. Slide that one on, slide this one back down, and then tighten this one up. Once this is on here, all I need to do is slide this tube through the hole that's conveniently already in the truck down there, because I'm pretty sure somebody else had one of these heaters installed in here before. So I've got the exhaust hooked up, I've got the fuel hooked up, I've got the air intake hooked up, I've got the electrical hooked up. The only thing left to hook up at the heater is the plumbing, which I can't do until I have the hot water tank installed. So, through the magic of editing, 3, 2, 1. Hey, presto! That's so much easier on camera.
Oh, just like that, the plumbing's all done too. Okay, really quick overview of the system. The lowest point, I have the pump. This should prevent any air bubbles from being trapped in the pump when I'm filling the system, or if there's air in the system when it's operating. Out of the pump is an uphill run all the way to the coolant heater, and it's also uphill out of the coolant heater. This should prevent any air bubbles getting trapped inside the heater. It's a little bit hard to see, but I also have an uphill run coming out of the heat exchanger or the heater core, so I should not get any air trapped inside the heater core. Now, the highest point in the system is this T-fitting with this orange line coming off of it. Once the shelf is installed over top of this orange line will be an uphill run to the expansion tank. This heat system is installed in the far back corner of our cube, so this is our potable water tank, the hot water tank, the coolant pump at the lowest point. The heater is right in here. There's going to be a shelf across all of this, and then the expansion tank is easily accessible from the outside through the back door here with our water fill here. And the final step is, of course, hooking up the fuel line, which I have here, connected with these short section of rubber hose to the fuel tank pickup. Now, again, I was lucky, our truck already had a fuel pickup in the tank, so I did not need to install a new one. I did blow compressed air backwards through that before I hooked it up to make sure two things: one, it wasn't plugged, and two, it actually goes down below the level of the fuel inside the tank, which it does. And coming out of the top of the fuel tank runs down the tube into the fuel pump down at the bottom of the tank, so the fuel pump is kept low to prevent it from getting airbound. From here it runs uphill to the back of the truck to the diesel heater. So I've tidied up the wiring a little bit now, and that little block that you can see there screwed to the bottom of the countertop is a little fuse block that comes with the unit, and that has the 3 fuses in it. Pretty straightforward to wire. The basic wiring. There are some advanced things you can get into, but overall pretty straightforward if you follow the wiring. Once the system is installed and you have the wiring hooked up, operation is pretty straightforward. The display will go to sleep when you're not using it. A simple touch of the square button will bring it back online. You can see here my voltage is 13.4 volts and it's got the time and date in it. Pressing and holding the button, you'll see it says starting. Okay, quick clarification. What I did there was actually touch and hold, which starts the coolant pump only. This is useful if you're trying to prime the cooling system or you already have heated coolant. To start the entire system, do a quick touch, same as starting it up, and this will start the heater as well as circulating coolant. And we can hear the heater firing up. And you can see it's not very warm right now. That is the coolant temperature, not the air temperature. But to be honest, it's going to be pretty close to the same. And as the unit heats up, we'll see that temperature come up, and I have this wired up to automatically kick on the fans when it reaches the correct temperature. So outside underneath the truck, probably a little hard to hear. There's a bit of wind out here now, but you can start seeing a little bit of exhaust coming out of the exhaust hose there. As the heater is firing up, you'll get a little bit of smoke when it first fires up, but that does clear up once it gets running at temperature. And back inside now, we can see the heater's running and coolant temperature is starting to come up. So again, this is coolant temperature, not air temperature. Now, I've done some additional wiring on my setup where I have a switch here that says heater, which is actually fan. If I have this in the on position, I can manually power up my heater blower fan. And when I have it in the off position, that will automatically kick on once the heater reaches its operating temperature. So keep in mind the coolant is circulating through the system, and once that coolant's up temperature there, okay, so it just hit temperature and you heard my heater kick on by itself. So over here I now have hot air coming out of these 3 holes from the heater. Now, in order to shut the system down, if I want to, so this system will shut down on its own when it gets up to temperature, but if I'm done using it and I want to shut it down, it's just another simple push of the stop button, say shutting down, and it's going to take some time for it to run through. Now here's where I can manually go back and turn my heater blower on because there's still hot coolant circulating in there. And the system says shutting down. Very simple, straightforward to use. And now that everything is shut down again, the display goes back to showing the voltage, the time, and it will eventually, in a couple of seconds, go to sleep. If you have any questions, post them down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.